Welcome back to the Shine and Thrive Photography Podcast. My name is Sarah Monica, and today we're going to be talking about artificial light. And I'm so excited to have my guest, Eden Strader, back on the podcast. She was already a guest back, when was it? Beginning of 2022. I remember interviewing her being like almost fully like due. I was pregnant, so pregnant, probably out of breath while podcasting. It was so funny, but yeah, that was a great podcast episode. She offered so much wisdom and value, and it was all about the myth of oversaturation. That was episode 91. If you're interested in listening to that. But in today's conversation, I'm excited to bring it to you because I'm someone that never really got that excited about flash and artificial light because I love natural light and the way it looks and being outdoors during wedding days and not having to be stuck inside because I love the outdoors. I thrive in nature. And so I always just was like, well, because I pretty much mostly shoot outdoor weddings, I don't really need or want to have like a higher level of skill with artificial light photography and flash. And so I know what I need to know in order to do a good job when we are in situations where it's dark or it's the it's reception time, or we're in a dark small room. All of those things, I know how to work my bounce flash on my camera, but I've never really gone to the next level of like playing around with off camera flash. And one of the reasons was I always thought it would be too intrusive or too difficult. It would take me away from like being focused on the moment. But oh my gosh, Eden just like blew all of those thoughts out of the way. They were totally just like limiting beliefs that I had. And she just kind of has opened up this whole new world to me, to see all the benefits of playing with artificial light on wedding days, and how it's possible for it to look more natural than you think as well. Oh my gosh, I'm just going to let you listen to this episode because you'll learn everything in this episode. But before we dive in, I just want to introduce Eden to you. And I'm actually really excited because we're starting to form this like friendship, which I'm just like so excited about because it's so important to me to find, other educators in the space that are like totally aligned with like my values and how I like to approach teaching and the quality of the teaching, and us being like honest and integrity and authentic with how we approach teaching and selling our courses and all of that. And Eden is so aligned with that, and she even we can even connect on the idea of like energy and spirituality in the universe. And so we just connected so easily, and she just has so much value to offer, and it's been so nice to get to know her and collaborate with her as well. So yeah, I'm just so excited for you to listen, to hear from her, to learn from her, take in her energy. And just to quickly introduce her to you with her bio. So Eden Strader is a destination wedding photographer turned business coach. She now helps photographers and creative entrepreneurs to build lives of artistic growth, wealth, and freedom. Everything in Eden Strader's realm is built on the idea that the perfect business is where soul meets strategy. We believe your business should fulfill you both emotionally and financially, be fueled by strategy and systems, all while being a stepping stone on the path to our dream lives instead of stopping at the business as the final destination. Sorry, I meant to say stopping at the business as the final destination. So yeah, enjoy tuning into this episode. And also, if you do enjoy listening to this episode, I would be so grateful for you to also rate and review this podcast as well. If you've been a longtime listener, I've enjoyed many episodes. I always forget to ask for this. I'm always like, oh, I totally forget to ask for people to like rate and review the podcast. It would help me so much. It's a free way to support me and the podcast and help more photographers find this content to help them grow as well. So I would love, love, love to hear from you. I read all the reviews personally. And yeah, I would be so grateful for that. So if you could just take the time, maybe right now, as I've mentioned it, you can just like pop into Where is it? So Apple Podcasts, you can actually write a review and then star rate it, which is really cool. So you could do that now if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. And then on Spotify, they only offer like the star rating. So you could just go ahead and click the star rating. It'll take you 2 seconds. And by the time you're done listening to the intro of this podcast, it'll be done. And oh my gosh, you're going to help me so, so much. And also help the photography community find this podcast easier. So thank you so much in advance and enjoy this episode. Welcome, Eden. Welcome to the Shine Thrive Photography Podcast. I'm so excited to chat everything flash, artificial light with you today. And I know this is your second time on the podcast, actually, because
Yes.
last time we talked about the myth of oversaturation, which was a really, really good conversation. And so, yeah, I'm just so excited to dive in, especially because I feel like even for me, flash is something that feels intimidating, and like working with like different techniques for artificial light, I'm like, I've never really like dove into like learning more about it, because I'm just like, it feels like it would be too much equipment or too overwhelming or too much to learn. And so I know a lot of the listeners probably feel the same way. So guys, me and you are on the same page. We're going to learn from Eden together. And yeah, I'm excited about that. So yeah, thanks so much for being on.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me on again. I'm like, these are some of my favorite things to talk about, specifically when we get into photography and especially wedding photographers, because I think like my two loves in photography are like flash and harsh light, and those are everyone's least favorite things ever. And so I get like so much joy in getting to talk to people about flash photography because not only is it not scary, but it's actually really, really fun and amazing and like relieves a lot of stress while also amplifying your ability to be artistic on wedding days. And it can feel so intimidating and so complicated, so expensive, all of those things. I'm like, please keep track of your objections because I want to like talk through each of them individually. Because it just gets such a bad rap, and it's such an amazing use of light that every wedding photographer needs to know about. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah. So actually, why? Like let's dive into why. Like
Just
if
like
you're like,
literally
you
why.
literally just said like every wedding photographer like needs to have certain level of understanding around this. Like, let's get into why.
Mhm. So I think like let me start with one of I think everyone who shoots weddings loves weddings, right? Like you only shoot weddings if you love them.
Yeah.
Secondary, the thing that no one is mad about is the money, right? Like weddings are great money. They can't be the one thing that drives you to shoot weddings. I firmly believe that, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
they also are a great way to earn a very decent and magnificent living in the arts, specifically photography. And I think a huge foundational part of what you're able to charge as a wedding photographer is the amount of technical skill that you also bring to the table. Like, obviously, it's a balancing scale between client
Mm-hmm.
experience and your artistic voice, but like one of those elements is technical photography. Like, that is what is going to separate you from Uncle Bob with his little DSLR that like
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know what he's doing. Technical photography, you can't be charging 10K a package if you can't like really guarantee that you can cover your clients in any situation. And that's what flash photography provides. It's really this ability to show up on your wedding days and have complete control over your work and like serve your couples with less stress, deliver more dynamic galleries. And so let's kind of start at like one by one, right? Like, why do I
Mm-hmm.
need this technically? I think a lot of people kind of approach flash photography with this like, but I'm a natural light photographer. Like, why would I
Yeah.
ever need artificial light? And I'm like, totally hear you. And a big misconception with artificial light is that it is going to look artificial. And while it can, there's also ways to make it really, really natural. And even if you are a natural light photographer, if the day hasn't come yet where you are in a dark basement, like it is coming. Like, let me be clear. No one gets through their wedding career
Oh my
without
God.
ending up in a dark basement.
With you saying it's coming, all I thought of was winter is coming
Literally,
from Game of Thrones.
Game of
Wait,
Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. No, it's
It's
big
coming.
that. Like, I'm like, if I can put money on anything, it's that you're going to end up in that situation. And I remember at probably like 2 or 3 years into my full-time career. I can't remember exactly when. I think it was like 2016, 2017. I booked my dream clients. Like I was living in Utah at the time. They were from New York City. They were getting married at a destination wedding in Vermont in the fall. They had like pretty high end, more like public jobs. They submitted their engagements to the New York Times. Like it was one of those things where I was like, ooh, I could really change my career if I do like a really amazing knock it out of the park job with this wedding. Like it was stunning. It's still one of my
Hmm.
favorite weddings. On the off chance they ever hear this, Danielle and Mark, I still love them. They're so lovely. And we showed up to their wedding. It also was my first time shooting at this venue that I later went on to shoot at several times because of this gallery. We showed up to the venue and it had rained that day. And it wasn't still raining, but it was like wet enough outside that they were like, we don't want to make our guests like trudge through, this like wet grass and mud. We're going to have to do it inside. And I was like, okay, like slay, sure. Like, let's do it inside, whatever. They take us to the inside option, which was literally just a basement. Like, it was a basement with like one window really far away from where the ceremony setup was. Like, it was one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are going to light a few candles and that's gonna be it. Like, that's what we're working with. And I mean, I'm sure like I'm like, even in this situation, if I tossed you into a basement, a pitch black basement with a couple candles and a window that's 50 feet away, what would you do?
Flash. Like, will panic first
Mhm,
because I'm like,
absolutely.
oh no, I have to like turn to my flash. It's not my favorite look. Like, and that's like when you don't have a lot of experience, or I don't know how to like work with
Mhm,
it. But yeah, if I'm someone that is like, okay, I know how to use my flash, but only pretty much on camera, bounce, try and make it look as best as possible. I'm
mhm.
kind of like panicking, like, okay, but at least I can get light on their
You can get
faces and they're going to be
something.
in focus. So I'm like, okay, I have the tools to do that, but it's still not ideal. And I feel
Mhm.
like it's like unsettling.
Yes. Well, it's like it's so stressful and then you like can't even focus on your clients and like creating art for them and like really being in the moment because you're just like, "Oh shit, please let these turn out." Like it's just
Mhm.
stressful.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the situation that most photographers find themselves in, or, bumping up to 10,000 ISO and just
Mhm.
being like, can't wait to deliver like a 5 by 5 pixel
Or like, can
image
you
to my
guys
client.
cuddle by that one tiny window? And this is all that
No,
we have to work
literally.
with. And then you're like, okay, I'm going
Yeah,
to try different positions, but then the light isn't hitting one of their faces over and over, and I don't know how to reposition them and panic. And then
exactly.
what happens under stress for us as artists? We can't actually create. There's so much pressure and stress
Oh,
that,
you're just
yeah, we cut off all this creativity.
absolutely. And like you said, even being able to position them a little bit during portraits, it's like ceremony, you're just working with what you have. And
Mhm.
so it was one of those situations where like I was at the beginning of like my flash and artificial light and like off-camera flash journey, but I had been practicing, I had all of my equipment, and it really was this moment of like, okay, here we go. Like this is my chance to like literally make or break my career.
Oh.
Even though it was that one in particular was a little stressful because I that was like my first big like test, but thankfully I already had the knowledge, I already had the gear. It was more like, okay, this is the moment to put it into practice. But had I had not had that, I literally
Mm,
don't know how I would have been able to provide images for that client. And that's an
yeah.
entire ceremony wiped out of a wedding that ended up changing my career and like taking me into destination weddings specifically on the East Coast. And I only was in that situation because I took artificial light seriously in the beginning of my career and was like, let me figure this out because I'm sure I'm going to end up needing it one day. And I did. I did end up needing it one day.
Mhm.
And instead now of like when I shoot weddings and moving forward after that day, I have had no shortage of weddings where we get put in situations that are just like garbage, just absolute nightmare. Like weddings where it's rained, or like I remember I had one in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and the bride's getting ready room is like this little like 5 by 10 room. Like it's like an attic in a barn. And there's a white wall and everything else is like very barn. And it was also pitch black up there. They had like one tungsten light. So it like we would have been working with like 1.4, 1 over
Mhm.
100 and just like holding my breath, ISO
Mhm.
10,000, and the images would have been garbage. But instead, I was able to like pull out my flashes, set up my off-camera flash, and provide like these really editorial, almost like studio looking shots by being able to shoot them on this white wall and not having to think about light because I was the one creating it. And so that's like one of the things that I want to like drill into people's heads in the beginning is that like your control over lighting only exists when you shoot artificial light. That's the only light that you truly, truly control. It's light that you literally like create. And it does not have to look chintzy. It doesn't have to look like JC Penney. It doesn't have to look like flash. It can look like natural light with certain techniques. There are, and I can give you some links to some galleries, but like there are sessions that I've shot entirely with flash that people would think were natural light. And that is only by learning the skill sets on how to use it. And so you can use it for so many ways too, right? It's like you can soften harsh light, you can eliminate unwanted shadows, you can compensate for one window, but the other window, kind of like you said, where like one person's face is showing and the other person's
Mhm.
isn't. You can use artificial light to fill that. There's so many possibilities when you're creating your own light. And like, how magical is that? That you get to like literally show up on a wedding and be like, what are you guys going to throw at me? Because I've literally got it no matter what. Like, I create my own light. There's literally no situation that you can put me in that I'm not going to be able to control my light. And so that's kind of like the first objective I want to get you past is like, no, 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 I'm a natural light photographer. I don't need it. No, you do. You do in fact need it because sometimes there's
Mhm.
not going to be natural light.
Yeah.
And two, you have this ability to create your own light and you can make it look however you want, whether that is natural or moodier or whatever that may be.
Actually, I have a question because
Yes.
I'm right away, I'm thinking in terms of just me being someone that is actually scared of working too much with artificial light as well. Like, I'm just thinking, okay, if I have more of like a documentary storytelling approach on a wedding day, my thought process goes to it'll be too distracting. And please, please tell me about like how your perspective on this. Yeah.
Mhm. So I am also a big like I don't want to intrude in someone's wedding day experience. And I think that's like another really big objection is people like they imagine these like giant setups and you're like in people's faces and it feels like paparazzi. And I'm like, yeah, no, that sounds like a nightmare. If that's what artificial light was, I would also hate it. Like
Mm,
and it can be like that, right? Like we've all seen that.
mhm.
However, you have the ability when you start mastering how Flash works to almost prioritize what's more important to you based on the look that you're wanting. So, like, let me give you an example. Like, let's say we're shooting toasts and you're like, ooh, I don't want like to be setting up lights in front of people where it's going to block them from seeing like the people actually getting the toast or like I don't want to block, grandma from seeing the cake cutting. Like that's so intrusive. And like while you are going to have flash firing, you'll be shocked how little people actually notice that. I think it's way
Yeah.
less
It
intrusive
becomes
than a
like totally
constant
like
light.
the back of their
Mhm.
mind, subconscious. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas, like, in a constant light, I think is so intrusive. Like, when I hear photographers are
Mm.
using video lights, I'm like, "What are you doing? That ruins the whole
Ooh.
vibe." Like, if you're having a candlelit dinner and someone sets up a giant constant strobe, that whole ambiance is gone now. It's
Yeah.
destroyed by your constant light. Whereas if you can just have little flashes firing, it almost like you said, it becomes like white noise where, like, they don't really notice it anymore.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
so
quick, while we're on that, quick
yes.
a question for you with your like opinion on what if there's a constant light set up for first dance, to
Mhm,
have that backlit rim
mhm,
lighting? What's your
mhm.
opinion on that for first dance? Like a quick little like
To me, it's like if the videographers wanna set it up,
mhm.
sure, like, that's not my business. However, you can do that with
Oh,
speed lights as well. You can do that with off-camera flash, and that's
yeah.
something that I do often, and I'll include some links for you guys that you can reference where, like, I even do that with sparkler exits sometimes, where I'll
Mm,
backlight them. So, like, we shot one, for example, actually the wedding with the ceremony in the basement. Their sparkler exit took place kind of like on a little bridge with, like, a little cove over it, so it trapped the smoke. And it made this really beautiful hazy effect. And so we backlit it with a flash so that all of that smoke was like lit up, like
mhm,
backlighting, which was stunning. But again, we were able to have that speed light effect. And
mhm.
so that's what's fun when you start working with artificial light is you can kind of like be like, what do I want this to look like? Not like, what is it going to look like? What do I want this to
Oh,
look
yeah.
like?
Yeah. A
And
new level of creativity. Yeah.
yeah, it's a new level of creativity and also just diversity, right? Because you're like, oh, let me get a backlit shot, let me get a moody shot, let me get a light and airy shot. And you're suddenly able to deliver like several variations of one setup because you know how to move around your lights and create something new. But going back to like the intrusiveness of it
Hmm.
all.
Hmm.
Something that you can always do is if you're like, I don't even want people to see my lights, like, let me set them up further away from the subject or like behind a pole and just put them at a higher setting so that the flash is
Hmm.
traveling further. So it's like we're still getting the same look that we need, but the flashes don't have to be in everyone's faces. Like I always will look literally for poles because you know how some venues will have just like
Hmm.
weird beams and
Yes.
stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, if there's something already obstructing people's views, I'm going to put my stuff in front of it so that
And
I'm
also
not
usually
adding to
stand
it.
there.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I'm
It's so funny.
like it doesn't have to be that serious.
Hmm.
Obviously there are going to be instances where you're like I can't do off camera right now. I'm going to have to do on camera and
Hmm.
just understanding how Flash works and you know what settings do what and we can get into this. But like understanding how it works then gives you the ability to change what you need in order to obtain the look that you want. And so there's lots of ways to kind of go about avoiding like distracting people depending on you know the venue the look that you're going for. Another thing that I love about off camera flashes, are you a dual camera
Yes.
shooter?
Yeah.
So you could
I'm a
have
dual.
we love that, a duel. You can have like 2 different setups. Like, so you could have one by the
Ah.
couple and have one on the audience, and then have each camera set to a different station. So it's
Oh
like
my
I
God.
can be shooting this camera on the couple with my 70 to 200, and it's triggering just the flash next to them. And then on my other camera, I have my 35 millimeter for guest reactions, and the other flash is on a different station pointed at them, and now I get to shoot them and I'm not like firing all the flashes at once and having to adjust my settings. Like that's
Oh
my
my
other favorite
God.
thing. No, I know,
Wow.
right?
Thanks
If
for
you're getting all
sharing that.
fired
I'm
up,
like,
I'm
did
like, I'm
not,
so
did not think
excited.
of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's
Yeah.
also just like obviously and one of my I do really like talking about both on camera and off camera flash because they both have their strong suits and their perks and their cons. But one of my favorite things about off camera flash is when you're in settings, which you often are in weddings where there's not a lot of movement, like they're staying in the same general region. So things like cake cutting, like they're moving, but they're staying in the same spot.
Yeah.
First dance for the most part, even toasts, things like that. They're not moving a ton. And so you just get to set up your lights, get your settings set, and then nothing's going to change no matter how much you move around. So you can go
Ooh.
back, get a super wide shot. You can go in and get a super close up shot, but you don't have to pay attention to settings anymore because your lights are already set up. And
And
I
the
think,
look looks different because if you're just using on camera flash and you're just bouncing, it's always just going to look the
mhm.
same way,
Well, and it's
right?
like it can change the look of the image kind of in a negative way, right? Where you're like, say you're further away, and so it looks a little bit more natural because the flash is having more time to spread out. And then you're like,
Yeah.
let me get a close-up shot. That's when it starts looking kind of chintzy and like
Yeah.
bold, and you're like, oh, that's obviously flash because you're
Yeah.
so close to them. Whereas if you're shooting off camera flash, you completely get to construct and like build the dynamic of what that lighting's
Hmm.
gonna look like. And then you can move around all you want to change the perspective of the shoot while keeping the lighting consistent throughout each image, regardless of like how close or far you are.
Super cool. Wow. Thank you. Like,
Hmm.
and that's just like literally the tip of the iceberg. And I'm already like,
Yes.
ooh, this is
Hmm.
very interesting.
Hmm. It really is like it's one of those things that where like as you deconstruct it, and again, I like as you deconstruct it, it gets easier. But like again, I think the first thing to realize is that like you do need this. Even like if you
Mhm.
take the fun out of it, which I love talking about the fun, but even if we just want to go on like core basics, you do need it because you will end up in a situation where you will need it. But then how cool is it that once you get past that level of necessity, you now get to do stuff that's really fun and unique and capture things in really fascinating ways. Like another point that I love talking about is like I used to hate shooting detail photos, like classic detail photos,
Mhm.
especially when like you know when you have like 10 minutes to shoot the entire tablescape in like
Yeah.
settings. And you're like, great. Going back to like Danielle and Mark's wedding, same thing in a barn, like pitch black by the time I got details. I had 10 minutes to do it. They had the most stunning details.
Hmm.
um Daniel and Mark's wedding ended up changing my career, but it could have literally been kind of where it halted. And I think like it's my favorite wedding to talk about when it comes to artificial light, because I shot artificial light like almost all day because it was like so dark and rainy. And so I was able to set up my lights really quickly because I knew how to set them up. And then I got to capture their details one quickly because I just got my settings right and then didn't have to think about them again. Almost like you don't when it's natural light. Hint,
Hmm.
hint. And then I also though like got to get such a wide variety of detail shots because I got to do like, okay, let's do a light and airy look so that you can see all the details. You can see everything as if this was filled with literal natural light. And then I
Hmm.
was like, okay, let's get some moodier shots because,
Hmm.
you know, this is a moodier setting. This is a candlelit dinner. Like these natural light shots don't maybe necessarily invoke the same emotion and like feelings that they're going to get while sitting in this moodier setting. So like how can I capture this essence of what they want their details and night to feel like
Hmm.
with artificial light? And so then I got to do my more moody setups, and that was as simple as just moving around a couple of the flashes, making sure settings were still good, which they stay the same for the most part. And then I got to move around and then get like a moodier look to their wedding. And so instead of delivering them, you know, like 20 to 30 images that all look basically the same, I
Hmm.
was able to take like really far away shots and really close up shots with several different lighting like variations as well. So it's like it's really not a change in time or effort on my part, but it also makes the client delivery so much more exciting and valuable because they've got a
Hmm.
greater variety now. Like we've all delivered a gallery where we're like, oh, cool, I took the same photo 10 times. Like, great. And you kind of get to eradicate that and be like, okay, I got this shot. How can I change it now? Like, what can
Hmm.
we do with the lighting to make it more dynamic, which is really, really fun.
And one thing I've heard before, it's so true. Like, you know how like painters have paint?
Hmm.
We have light. We literally paint with light. Like that's our
Hmm.
tool. Without light, we couldn't have images because it would just be a black, literally photo without any
Absolutely.
sunlight, without any like light from flash, anything. Like if the world was dark and there
Hmm.
was no artificial light, it would just be, there'd be no
Feels like
photography.
it feels like the creation story.
Yeah, it does.
There was darkness.
From
Suddenly
the,
there was
yeah,
light.
yeah, yeah. It's just so
It
funny.
was artificial. Like,
It was oh no, no, that's gonna make me go down a whole every time I hear of like the start, the beginning of time, I'm just like my brain gets so boggled. I'm like, oh no, but seriously, where did we come from? How did this all start? Like,
oh,
oh my God, my brain hurts. Like know so little. Anyway, let's not go there. So, is there any other objections that come to mind or things that photographers are like, yeah, that sounds cool, but no, you know?
mm-hmm. I'm like, let me walk through the normal objections and make sure we hit them all. One
Mhm.
is being like, do I even need that? Like, I'm a natural light photographer. Two
Mhm.
is like, I am a natural light photographer. How do I make that consistent with my portfolio? And the answer is like, yes, you can make it look consistent with your portfolio.
Mhm.
I think number three is yeah, that it's going to be super intrusive and like it's going to distract everyone. And I actually think it's one of the least distracting ways to capture people's weddings because again, like you said, at the end of the day, if there's no light, it's a black photo. So
Mhm.
you
And
are kind of
we're
gonna.
using, if anything, like if you're a photographer that photographs weddings and you're like, yeah, but I do use flash. I have my
Mhm,
on-camera flash and that's how I use it. Um, it's you're still flashing the light. So
mhm,
no matter what, whether you have it set up somewhere on to the side, beside a pole or behind the
mhm,
guests, that's a setup that's out of people's way and
mhm,
it's flashing anyway. So no matter what, you're gonna have to flash people, haha,
mhm.
in dark situations. So you might as well maybe learn a way to actually make it more exciting and creative for you instead of like, oh, here, because this is how I feel. I'm like, here I go. I have to put my flash on
Mhm,
my camera because there's not good
mhm,
lighting. And I'm like, now
mhm,
that hearing you talk about this, I'm like, oh, maybe there's a way I can actually get excited about darker rooms and I can get more excited about using flash. So
Mhm.
yeah, keep that in mind, everyone. Even if you're already like, yeah, I already use on-camera flash. Like there's a whole new
There's
world.
a whole new literally a whole new world.
Yeah.
I feel like there's 2 more, which are
Hmm.
4th. I'm like, I can't remember what number we were on, but, like, 4th would be that, like, your images are gonna start to feel boring or, like, a little too consistent, right? Because that's, like, one of the perks is the
Yeah.
consistency, but then it's like, well, what if it's too consistent? Like, is this gonna take away my ability for creativity? And it's like, you can do so many things with Flash, like, you can do motion blur, you can freeze things, you can create a lot of depth and intentional shadows, like, there's so many creative possibilities on top of that, and then I think the 5th one would be the cost,
Hmm.
and I think this is, like, something that I know was, like, a big thing for me when I first started, because I bought so many lighting setups. Like, when I think about it in the beginning because, like, especially in, like, the very beginning of my career, I was, like, listening to anything anyone had to say about it. Like, they were like, "Buy this, then buy this," and I'm like, "Okay." So I spent so much money. I tried everything. I tried video lights. I tried these lights that one of my favorite photographers, she said she used, and she definitely lied. Like, I think it was like a like endeavor that she was hoping would take off, but she was like, "Oh, I use these little like pocket-sized lights, and they're so powerful, and like this is what I use for everything." And so I bought them. They were the weakest things in the world. And then I like went back through her imagery, and I was like, "That is not that light." Like, I think
Mm.
unfortunately it was a lie. So I always tell people, I'm like, I have run the numbers, if you will, on like
Mhm.
lighting equipment. And like a lot of people will sell you on a lot of different ways, but I'm like, I've tried most setups. And
Mhm.
by the time I was like about to give up, I was like, okay, the setups I'm needing, like if I want a softbox, if I want tripods, if I want off camera flash equipment, like, am I going to have to shell out like 5 grand for that? Like, I remember someone sent me their setup and it was $3,000. And I was like, I just started my career. Like, I don't have 3 grand laying around for flashes. Are you joking? Um, and so it's really important to me when I talk about Flash that like one, I will share with you my setup, which still isn't that expensive. It's like less than $1,000. But I also share with you the setup that I started with. And the setup that I started with, I'll give you the link for the gear because you can always include it in the show notes. But like
Mhm.
I started on a newer Flash. They're $30, like the newer brand, NEEWER, and the newer triggers and receivers. And those are also, I think, like $30. And so you hypothetically could get started in both Flash and art, like off camera Flash for less than $100. You're not going to get cheaper than that. I'm like, we'll have to
Mhm.
level on that. You're not going
Mm,
to get cheaper
yeah.
than that.
Mhm.
But it's like if you right now literally don't have more than $100, that's okay. You can still buy that gear and still accomplish something great. You're gonna have to have a lot of AA batteries on you because the con of cheap gear is that the
Mm.
batteries die quickly, but get rechargeable ones and you'll be just fine. Keep them in your
Mhm.
pockets. But it doesn't have to be expensive and it also doesn't have to be big. Like I shot destination weddings, and so it was really important to me that like
Yeah.
gear could be compact and not hard and not huge.
Mhm.
And everything can be packed up into like a tote bag, including the softbox. Like I used to literally just have to carry a tote bag and my tripod, and that was it. And
And because the
so
softbox
the
folds down.
softbox folds,
Yeah.
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 And I have one that is like
And it's like
so
smaller.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like not huge. I think it's like 2 feet maybe wide, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
compacts into a little baggie itself. And I'll give you guys the link for that so everyone can literally just find it, buy it.
Mhm.
But they're really, I'm like, do you have any objections to Flash that come to mind? Because I'm like, I feel like I can debunk
No, I
all of
think
them, but I'm
that's
like, have I
yeah.
forgotten some?
No, I feel like complete on my end. I'm like, that's everything that like I could think of that was the main stuff going on in my noggin.
Mhm. And it's yeah, I'm like, if you come up with someone listening, you're like, "Well, I have this objection." Toss it
Mhm.
in my DMs. I am happy to like debunk it with you. Because it really is this thing that like it benefits everyone. It's like it benefits your clients, it benefits your galleries, it benefits your portfolio, it benefits your stress levels, it benefits your artistry.
Mm,
It will
yeah.
eventually benefit your bank account. Like, do you know how cool it is to be able to send off galleries where you're like, "Hey, here's a wedding I shot in someone's basement and it looks stunning. Isn't that
Yeah.
cool?" Like,
Yeah. Are you do you, because now I'm like so curious. I want to see that. Like can but
yeah.
okay, we'll have it linked for you guys in the show notes.
Yes, I'm like, I'll
Yeah.
share with you like several that we've shot with artificial light that kind of like show a variation of like on camera, off camera, as well as like
Hmm.
natural light versus, it is clearly flash.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to it and it's so much fun. So yeah, I'll have to share some links
Oh,
with you
that's
guys.
amazing. I love how you talk about this. You clearly are like so passionate and excited about it, and you're clearly teaching from experience. It's like so this just like fires me up. You actually are the first person to ever get me excited. I'm excited right now about artificial light. I've seen so many like there's like YouTube tutorials. I've never
Mm,
felt motivated to like I just really like because I'm not like a gear person. I'm not a gearhead. I'm not like, oh, the
mhm.
newest cameras out.
No,
Let me
same.
find out about it. Like I just don't have that passion for it. And so
Mhm,
now hearing you talk about it in this way of like, yeah, how it could really benefit stress levels and even creativity. Because after
mhm,
I've been in photographing weddings for like 12, 13 years now, it's like,
mm,
okay, what is the next way I can like get creative and find that new excitement, that new challenge, right? Because I feel like an expert in so many different ways of what I do already, but it's like,
mhm,
we're always looking to grow, always looking to take on a new challenge. So, like, thank
mhm.
you for, enlightening me with this.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm, like, so excited for you to dive in because yeah, it really is, like it's also, like, to go along with the creativity, like you said, do you know when you're, like, at a session, you're like, "I'm out of poses, like, I don't even know what shot to do next."
Hmm.
It's cool to be able to even just be like, "Let me change the lighting." Like,
Yeah.
that's something I can change. Like, that's literally something I personally have control over right now. Like, that's so powerful even to add, like, more diversity. So, yeah, I'm excited to dive into this more with you.
Yeah. And okay, so everybody listening, if you're just as fired up as I am right now about this topic and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to learn more, I'm so excited because Eden and I are collabing where she's going to be teaching you more on this. And I'm going to be there right in the lesson with you all. So, Eden, do you want to expand on exactly what this looks like moving forward and where people can sign up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I think one of the most important things, like you said, is like learning why you need this and getting excited. Like your work should be exciting. Like you're self-employed, you do art for a living. Like it should be
Hmm.
fun and it should be exciting. And now that we have that, like let's keep the ball rolling and actually start talking about like what Flash looks like, how it literally works, like what do the settings do? Is TTL versus manual? Like when do I do off camera versus on camera? What gear do I actually buy? What does that look like the first steps to really getting involved with artificial light so that we can keep the excitement going, but pair it with some actual tangible skills. So I'm so excited because we're going to have a little masterclass webinar, whatever it is that you like to call it, in collaboration with Sarah, which I'm so excited about, where we'll be walking through more examples, how we shot that, the way that your settings work for certain looks, and how to start getting, natural light looking images versus moody images, and all of that good stuff. You'll leave with like a lot of tangible information on how to start moving forward with Flash. So you can sign up at edenstrader.com/Sarah Monica, which we'll link for you guys, I'm sure, in the show notes. So it's an easy click for you. But we'd love to have you for the webinar to make sure that you know what to do next and you don't just have excitement, you have tangible tools and steps and directions on how to start implementing this in real life at your weddings.
Yeah, and it's perfect timing, just in time for like the start of wedding season. For most of you, I mean, people listen to podcasts from all over the world, but let me just actually double check because I want to make sure I got the date right, just in case you guys are like, oh, when is this happening? So it's happening June 6th. So June 6th. So yeah, you'll be able to sign up for it. And we'll be offering, are we going to do a replay in case people can't join live? Because,
Yeah, we can do
yeah,
we usually do like a 48-hour replay for
yeah, there
everyone.
you go. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, you can go ahead, go to edenstrader.com/Sarah Monica. And yeah, you can just like get to the next level of understanding what is possible for you with like getting to the next creative level in with your wedding photography and your confidence level with Flash so you have less stressful situations. And yeah, I love how you described everything, you know, people are going to learn in the webinar. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. I'm just excited. I'm like, Clearly, I'm like, I literally get giddy talking about artificial light. I think it's so much fun. And so I'm really excited to like show people the capabilities that it has. I think it's always so helpful to like see examples that don't look like JCPenney photography. Not that there's anything wrong with JCPenney photography, but that's always what people think it's going to look like. But show you how beautiful it can be and then start teaching you how to make those looks and like feel like you're in control of your gear and your lighting instead of it kind of controlling you on your wedding days.
Yeah. And so Eden and I love to just be like super transparent and open. And so at the end of the webinar, Eden's going to be sharing her course on artificial light. And at that point, you can decide, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need for this wedding season to learn. And I'm so excited. It's the perfect fit for me. And then you can sign up that way. Or if, it doesn't feel like the right fit for you, that's totally cool, but you're still going to learn so much in the actual free webinar. Like Eden is amazing with her integrity with this kind of stuff. She like genuinely cares with every step of the way. Whoever's listening, whether it's like a paid course or like a free podcast or a free training, she really packs in the value and like makes sure that you can leave with like knowing what to do next. And then the course is like the full scale, going in deep, like teaching you how to actually paint with light in different situations. And the cool thing is I have the course too, and I'm going to be diving into it before the wedding season as well. So we get to learn this together. So yeah, I hope you
I'm
guys
so
join.
excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. And especially because like I don't know about you, Eden, but having your own business can get pretty lonely, just like
Mhm.
chilling behind your computer by yourself. And this is anytime I get to like connect with another educator and then also other photographers, and we get to all just like learn together, ask questions, lift each other up. Oh my gosh, it's just amazing. So that's what that space is going to be like for you. It's going to be hosted over Zoom, so you'll get to be able to see everyone else's faces and
Yeah,
like
ask
just feel
questions.
exactly like it's going to be interactive. Like you can feel like you're actually on this journey not by yourself, and that's what's amazing about the internet these days. I remember when, I don't know about you, Eden, but like me starting like 12, 13 years ago, for the first like 3 to 4 years, I was so by myself in the
Oh my
journey. It
gosh.
was only like year 4 of my journey that I discovered there's Facebook groups for photographers where I can ask questions and there's a community. Like, what? So this is like the norm now, and it boggles my mind.
No, truly. It's like I'm the same. I haven't been doing it as long. I'm like, I've been doing it 10 years. I've been full time for like 7, I think, this year. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm like, education just wasn't really a thing. And it's like so fun to be able to gather people in these spaces and, be live with them, unless you're, of course, watching the replay. But like,
Mhm.
I also like want to touch on the fact that like I know how frustrating it is to hop on a webinar and get nothing but a pitch. And so like Sarah said, this isn't that. Like, it's so
Mhm.
important to me that if people trust me with their time, they're leaving with something tangible. Even if you literally never think of me again, that's okay. I'm just going to be happy knowing that you are out there, knowing how Flash works. That alone is a win for me. Like, that's all I need to know. So just know, even though I am like ecstatic to have you, Sarah, dive into the course, we just added like a bunch of updates and I'm excited for you to see it. We like recorded our whole in-person artificial light workshop. So you get to also see people like ask questions, see it like really like in motion with a bunch of attendees and like there's a lot to it. So it's one of my favorite courses. It's easily our best seller. And so I'm really excited for the people that do dive into it. But if you just come to the webinar too, that would make me so happy so that you can leave with like a knowledge of how Flash works and how to start using it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you, Eden, so much for your time. And just as a reminder, go sign up at edenstrader.com/Sarah Monica. Eden is spelled Eden, and Strader
Mhm.
is Strader.
Yes.
And that is all. So I hope you guys enjoyed this
Perfect.
episode. I love that I got to just chat with you and learn too. I
Oh
felt
my
like I
gosh,
was just like a
same.
little
I always love
student today.
chatting.
Yeah, yeah. And also, where can everybody find you outside of that and
Yeah,
connect
so
with
you
you?
can find me, Eden Strader, basically everywhere. Eden Strader is my website, Instagram. My podcast is called That's My Personal Business, but I always recommend people either starting with the podcast or on our website. We have like dozens and dozens and dozens of freebies, including, Pinterest marketing to manifesting tips to like wedding questionnaires to send your couple before the big day. There's a lot of stuff on there. So I always recommend kind of diving in there.
Awesome. Thank you. And also, if you found this episode valuable, I would love it if you would share this with another photographer friend that you know also struggles with flash or artificial light. Send it over to them, or even just post it to your story and be like, oh my gosh, photographers struggling with flash. Like, if you want to, up level your flash game or like feel more confident with lighting throughout wedding days, like you need to listen to this episode. And we would love to see you post that and tag us. So you can tag me, Sarah Monica Photo on IG, and then Eden Strader on IG. And yeah, we would love to thank you personally. Slide into your DMs, be like, oh, thanks for sharing. And that way you can also help us, with this impact of like getting more photographers feeling more confident with their craft, and for wedding couples to get even better quality images. So that is a beautiful ripple effect. I always love talking about ripple effects on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you, Eden, and thanks
Thank you. Thank you, one
everybody.
person.
Thank you, somebody, for tuning in. That's literally what came out of my mouth. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. All right, till next week. Bye. Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K, photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.